Who says you need something new to have fun off-road? Some of the best 4x4s were built years ago and they're still ready to rumble.
And that's exactly what we're here to tell you, that if you're a keen off-road enthusiast, you need not break the bank, because what I have behind me are some of the old-time greats that can still stand toe-to-toe with modern SUVs. Today, it's gonna be a lot of mud, rocks and nostalgia.
Welcome to Autocar Off-Road Day 2025.
Let's be honest, these classics possess far more off-road prowess than the latest tech-laden SUVs, and they aren't all show and no-go. A lot of these SUVs have some serious pedigree, and as is the case with off-roaders, they are all modded to the liking of their owners. The Pajero is famous for its winning stints in the grueling Paris-Dakar. The Fortuner is based on the indestructible Toyota Hilux. The Endeavour, although not designed for off-road, has all the ingredients to be a great off-roader. And then the homegrown hunks from Tata and Mahindra, the Safari Storm that has a cult following of its own, the Mahindra Thar that lit up a whole new flame in the off-road community, and as rare as one can get, the Bolero 4x4, an unbelievably simple recipe but incredibly potent. But these weren't the only ones. Hailed by many as the undisputed king, the Maruti Gypsy has its own aura in a setting like this. Learn Off-Road in Pali, Maharashtra has been the go-to spot for all the right reasons. Curated by off-road guru Tejas Kothari, it assures a tough exam for the SUVs in a safe environment. Resident off-road expert Rahul Kakkar has a new challenge this year, and it all starts with the basic prep. Air pressures go down for better contact patch, cameras all around for all angles, spotters in place, and off we go. The first group to begin were the big shows, with the Pajero calling age before beauty.
Alright, starting with a long downhill section in the Mitsubishi Pajero SFX. Back then when it was launched, there were barely any electronics in terms of off-road. There is literally a Super Select, which back then also was way ahead of its time, which let you select four-wheel drive from two-wheel drive if you're driving under 80 kph on the fly. Quite unique for its time.
The downhill crawl was easy thanks to the low-range gearbox keeping speeds in check.
And now we have the uphill climb. We'll back up a bit, take a bit of momentum.
The climb, however, was far from easy as it ran out of breath trying to pull all the mass up. The 2.8-litre intercooled diesel engine delivers bundles of low-end torque, but the weight and lack of modern electronics combined with a slippery surface aren't the best recipe. A second try with a different approach just might do it.
Alright, I've been asked to try it in third gear because there's a lot of wheel spin.
But even that didn't help, and sadly the Pajero had to abort the run.
So driving the Pajero SFX on the slippery, long slope going down, of course I felt the weight, a lot of weight of the car, pulling it down, but the gearbox works beautifully, holding it in the same line and it doesn't move around a lot, but you definitely feel the weight. Also, for a car that is so old, it is really comfortable. Going up, of course, the slope is very slippery. It's been raining for quite some time now, so it's very, very slippery. It did manage to clear the first bit of slope, which was quite steep, but the second bit towards the end, it just couldn't make it. And as a rule, we do 2 attempts and then, we don't want to damage the cars. We abort and we want to keep the track clear for other cars to attempt as well.
Apart from driver skill, a lot of external factors like weather and modifications affect the performance. So rest assured, with some weight reduction and grippy tires, it just might do it another day.
Next up on the slippery down slope, we have the Toyota Fortuner with a 2.8-litre engine, which is quite powerful, lining up with the slope. First gear, 4-low selected. Here we go.
But since it has so much heritage and has proven its mettle so often, there was no worry. On the slopes, driving downhill is straightforward thanks to the low range gearing and crawl ratio, but going uphill with the scarce grip exposes the lack of electronic aids. The combination of insufficient traction and sheer size and weight meant the Fortuner, like the Pajero, eventually had to withdraw.
Let's see. Momentum. Nope. So again, same story with the Fortuner. Unfortunately, on the slippery slope, going down not a problem because gravity does most of the job. It pulls you down nicely. No electronic aid even in the Fortuner, just first gear and let it go down slowly. So the suspension really worked well. It took the big bumps quite nicely. But again, climbing up, it was losing traction and it didn't have enough momentum to clear the first slope itself, and we had to abort.
Now for the most modern SUV in this class, the Endeavour. Not available in India anymore, but still loved by many.
Next up, the Ford Endeavour 3.2, the most sophisticated car that we have today in terms of electronic gear. It's got different modes for off-road and it has hill descent as well. In terms of modification, it's got a lift kit and off-road bumpers. But we really need the tires to work to clear the obstacle that we are attempting.
Driving down was effortless thanks to the hill descent control and the electronically operated low-range gearbox, but the steep slope and limited traction meant even the ND with all its tech failed to crest it. That was shocking.
It felt far more confident and I could tell that it's braking at different places to keep the car in a straight line, and it made it comfortably down. But again, just like many other cars, this too has a weight disadvantage. And the tires are only 80, so it helped only that much to climb maybe a little further than the other cars, but that's about it. We had to abort.
Next, it was the not so hardcore Tata Safari Storm with 320 Newton meters, which if you notice is modified with subtlety.
The owner of this car has raised it by 2 inches, so it's already a very high car. The visibility is very good. But that 2 inches of height is also going to make the car move a lot more is what I feel. But let's see how it goes.
While driving down was effortless and the visibility was good, getting it up the steep slope was a struggle. The engine just didn't have the grunt to pull it through with all that weight holding it back.
The real challenge was the uphill. Even with the 80 tires, the weight again is a huge disadvantage, and 2 attempts and it just couldn't make it. We had to abort it.
Next up were the Mahindras with the Thar CRD and the rare Bolero 4x4, with the latter taking the first attempt.
This probably is the least powerful cars that we have in the lineup today, but also is kind of light, so it should suffice for the obstacles that we are attempting. Right now we are on the downhill slope. Again, no electronics, so just slot it into the first gear. 4 low is already selected. I'm going to release the clutch and just let it go down slowly. And it's going down much faster than it should, but still feels under control. Not that bad.
But could the humble DI engine pull it up? That was the real test.
And let's see how this one does. Okay, a lot of loss of traction here. Nope. It's quite mucky and it's struggling for traction terribly.
Even the second attempt did not yield much.
Nope.
The challenging weather meant the terrain was extremely slushy, and we even had to resort to the SOS kit, which was quite the savior. If you tend to off-road, this is a must-have.
So the Mahindra Bolero, of course, it's a very, very charming vehicle, very industrial, very raw. It's got a DI engine, the 2.5, which makes a typical clatter that a diesel engine makes. So it's got its own charm, but on the slippery downhill section, because it's got the leaf spring suspension front and back, it really tosses you around. Yet it made it to the base of the slope, but where it really failed is the uphill climb. With 67 bhp on tap, it just wasn't enough and it just kept struggling for grip and momentum. Had to abort it, yet a lot of fun.
Could the Thar be the first SUV to make it to the top? It certainly has everyone's bets on it.
Now we're driving the first gen Thar, the one that came with the CRDE engine. The only modification in this one that has been done is the mud terrain tires, which itself is a huge advantage. Let's see how it handles the slippery slope and the steep incline. And just let it go. No hill descent control, no electronics whatsoever. This doesn't even have a locking differential. No brakes, no accelerator, just first gear and let it roll down. Alright, it moves a fair bit, yet we're down more or less comfortably.
And now for the big one.
Here we go, attempting the incline.
This was a big surprise.
Alright, we'll probably try a different line. Nope. So the Thar CRD was one of the last cars to attempt the downhill slope and the uphill climb, thinking that this will be the car that will easily do it, especially with the off-road ability and those off-road tires. Even this one couldn't do it, so we had to abort it. So it just goes to show that it is one of the toughest days we've had so far during our off-road shoot.
Could the old school charmer do what the Thar could not? The Gypsy was the last hope.
Okay, time for the Gypsy to go on the steep slope, which is followed by a steep, slippery incline. No electronic aid here, of course. First gear, low, and here we go. While going down, you can feel that the car is very light and you don't feel that you're being dragged down by the weight of the car. And hence, it's really, really stable here. And that is the steep incline which we intend to attempt. Let's see how the Gypsy does. Here we go.
The all-terrain tires didn't help and the grunt from the engine just wasn't enough. As a result, it had to withdraw, and that meant none of the SUVs could clear the uphill climb. This was just the first obstacle and the SUVs had already met their match. Could the next ones be equally challenging? Right off the bat, the Pajero has the advantage with its narrow track that allows it to take on tight obstacles without scraping the body.
It's literally like the car's popping a wheelie. And as expected, the Pajero SFX has literally walked this obstacle without any trouble.
No issues for the Dakar winner here, but what can the trusty Fortuner do?
Probably the toughest obstacle for the Fortuner here, because Toyota has designed the suspension more for on-road drivability than to articulate for better road holding on the road. We'll try and attempt this in second gear with more momentum. Nope. Reverse again.
It wasn't easy and the Toyota needed a fair bit of throttle to help it gain momentum. Not as easy as the Pajero, but it still made it.
Next up, the Ford Endeavour on the articulation obstacle. Of course, it's got all kind of modes here and even a diff lock, which I think for this round we'll leave it out and see how it does without engaging the differential lock. Here we go.
The modified bumper does help its case and the chunky tires give it traction too. So despite having a lot of tricks in the bag, the ND didn't have to use much.
This is the only car so far that has cleared the articulation obstacle without any fuss whatsoever, even without having to engage the differential lock. The Tata Safari Storm on the articulation obstacle. Here we go. It's quite a high vehicle, so visibility is really good. I can see the bonnet line. So far, so good. All right, you can sense that it's got quite a bit of weight that needs a little push on the climb. Maybe go a little behind, and it needs some amount of momentum to be able to clear the uphill. Not even that, it struggles because of the weight. So we'll go back a bit and carry more momentum. All right, that helped, and we've cleared the mound there. And again here we'll throttle a bit more. So it does need a bit of throttle while climbing up, but apart from that, quite smooth.
These were easy pickings for the Safari with a bit of a push. Next up, the Mahindras.
Easy does it. Wow. Feels. All right, we've stalled it. Quite nicely done, good visibility overall, good traction, good articulation.
The humble DI engine has a superb bottom end torque, and as a result, going over the mounds needs nothing but a gentle nudge on the accelerator.
With its short wheelbase, I think it's going to face a little more challenge clearing these humps. As expected, we should reverse a bit and carry a little more momentum to clear this hump ahead. And easy did it. Yet, you need to plan that much more in advance, anticipate the terrain, and work around it.
So not as effortless as the Bolero, but still made it with ease. This would be a bit tricky since the Gypsy features a leaf spring suspension which restricts articulation, so one needs to be more careful.
It doesn't really allow the wheels to articulate well to able to give you the traction that you need to clear the obstacle, but there is a way around it. You need to rev it higher. It's a lot more dramatic. You just power through. It moves around a lot, but it manages just fine.
With all the SUVs clearing the articulation, it was clear that the Pajero was the most effortless, followed by the modern Endeavour and the beautifully simple Bolero. Next is the V-rut, which is a test of the design of the SUV, because what's important here are the approach and departure angles, along with some grunt from the engine as well. The short overhangs and plenty of pull from the engine ensured it crossed over without a fuss.
So the Pajero SFX did quite well on the V-rut. There's so much torque on demand that there is no turbo lag and you can just sail through the obstacles, which is quite impressive. I really like how compact it is and you can just navigate it through tight spaces without having to think too much about that it'll rub on one side or the other. And you don't really need a lot of guidance from outside as well, so you can just happily drive it all day long. I like the visibility outside. The car's quite wide, yet it's easy to place the wheels and navigate through. Now that we've settled down, here comes the steep climb, and as we observed in the articulation obstacle that the Fortuner needed a lot more momentum going up, I'm assuming even here it might struggle a bit. It did need a lot more acceleration while climbing up compared to the others, yet it did it smoothly. In a very controlled fashion. You can hear the brakes engaging. Nice and slow. What is really important here is the approach angle and the departure angle at this obstacle.
And thanks to the ND's modification, it barely shrugs and makes it through with ease.
Smooth exit for the Endeavour with very light throttle. Here we go in the Tata Safari Storm in the V-rut. Of course, it doesn't have any electronic aid, which actually makes it that much more fun to drive if you ask me. There's lot more engagement and lot of more focus that is needed from the driver, which makes it all the more fun. What I also like about the Safari Storm is just the visibility outside. It's a massive windscreen and you can see literally to the end of the bonnet. And we've reached the bottom. Don't have to worry about the clearance. Maybe reverse a bit just to be sure, angle it a little bit. Here we go. No trouble on the rock as well. Beautifully done.
That was quite impressive, especially considering how basic it is in terms of kit. Can the Bolero do the same?
Of course, there is no electronic gear whatsoever. I'm just going to slot it in first gear and start descending the slope as slowly as possible. Not bad at all. And as we settle down, we are approaching the rock, which looks quite high, but there is enough ground clearance on the Bolero, so I don't think I have to worry about hitting the front or the rear. The overhangs are quite short, so easy does the Bolero.
No surprises there as the modified Bolero cruises through the rather tough V-rut.
So the Mahindra Thar CRDE on the V-rut. Here we go. The biggest advantage that I think the Thar will have here is its short wheelbase, and yet another one will be the short overhangs. It really has short overhangs, so there is going to be no trouble whatsoever clearing this narrow V that we pass while climbing the rock here, and it is a cakewalk for the Thar.
Not like we were expecting the Thar to struggle, but the ease with which it did it makes us wonder if this was even an obstacle. The Gypsy then to sum it all up.
What I really like about the Gypsy is that it is really nice and narrow. It's got a very narrow track, and with all this jungle around, the overgrown bushes all around, you don't really have to worry about damaging the body at all, and you can navigate these narrow trails with absolute ease. On this particular obstacle, what really is going to be highlighted with the Gypsy is its approach and departure angles, which make it stress-free to tackle both the approach and the departure on this really acute angle of the V-rut. And of course, the ground clearance also helps a lot. Of course, it's slippery, so need to tread carefully.
The slippy terrain meant the Gypsy needs a bit of a run up before it can go over the mound.
Okay, so back down at the V-rut, the rock is really slippery, so we need to carry a lot more momentum. Let's give it another shot. And out we come. So momentum is really the key.
Now that was an eventful day with some old school greats doing what they do best. Sure, these SUVs were prepped as per their owners, but it just goes to show with a little bit of personalization, you can take an old timer and still play with the new kids on the block and even defeat them at their own game.